Ted Cruz versus Christopher Wray, the showdown in the Senate Judiciary hearing. There was a lot of back and forth, and it all relates back to the FBI and their nefariousness. We're going to start with Ted Cruz today. We've got several clips from Ted, from Marsha Blackburn, and then Christopher Wray really had to get out of there. Something kind of strange happened. He said, are we done here? I have to go now. My flight is about to take off. And the senators are just like, yeah, sir, whatever you need. Yeah, see ya. So we'll take a look at that. But first and foremost, before we dive in, we've got to get a little bit of background, a little bit of foundation set from Project Veritas. Now, they posted last night something very interesting, and I think I have the link here. It tells us an FBI whistleblower leaks the Bureau's domestic terrorism symbols guide. All right. Now, we've talked a lot about this. Okay. There's all sorts of different DVEs, domestic violent extremism. Remember, we heard about RMVEs, which was racially motivated violent extremism, RMVEs. Then we had homegrown domestic violent extremism. So HGDVE. It's like, what the heck is going on? How many different permutations of letters can you have in one society? I mean, we already sort of used all the letters for another issue, and now we've got all of these other letters for this whole new issue, and we're running out of space. There's not enough letters in the alphabet for all of these things, but they've got a new one now. This one is now hitting the books. It is called Militia Violent Extremists. You can see that here, MVEs, and they're citing Ashley Babbitt as an MVE martyr. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, she's a martyr. She died for the cause. A leaked document is labeled as such. We're going to take a close look at this, but Project Veritas released this on the 2nd. They show how the Bureau classifies these people. You can see it's a very blurry document. Looks like somebody took a photograph of it on a table, and they sort of looks like they added this layer and sort of, gave it a shadow and all of that. But it looks like somebody just took sort of a blurry photo with a phone. But we will take a look at it. But I wanted to see. Yeah, there's no real information about where this came from, but as you'll see, here is the actual document in full. And I snipped through and I have some highlights here. It's probably difficult to see because it's quite blurry, but you can see the Gadsden flag, right? It's there. It says commonly referenced historical imagery or quotes. It's got the Liberty Tree flag. The Liberty Tree was a famous elm tree is what it says in Boston, near Boston Common. In 1765, colonists in Boston staged the first act of defiance against the British government at the tree, at the Liberty Tree. Betsy Ross flag, okay, also on there as a symbol, saying this is war imagery, hearkening back to the 13 colonies, and also just sort of a general concept of Revolutionary War imagery. Right here, you can see, example of militiamen during the Revolutionary War. These are revolutionaries. These are people who say that the federal government is garbage and useless. And apparently, according to the FBI, that is, well, let's see what they say here. So here's another screenshot of this. Symbols. Now, we've seen a lot of the Punisher symbols. We've talked some about that even in the Uvalde case. But here, right, there were officers with the Punisher symbol on his background. So apparently that guy was a militia terrorist or extremist or something. I don't know. But here you see another flag, Boogaloo. We've got Punisher skull. Anything talking about the 2A militant violent extremists justify their existence with the Second Amendment due to the mentor, whatever, message about well-regulated militias. Okay. Also see this warrior culture and anarcho-capitalism, right? The ANCAPs, an ideology held saying that some MVEs are advocating the state be eliminated and minimized. You're kidding me. People saying the federal government is basically useless is, okay, well, I'm in big trouble over here. Militia violent extremism, here's their summary. The following symbols that we just talked about are used by anti-government, anti-authority, violent extremists, specifically MVEs. MVE symbols are often found on propaganda, online platforms, memes, merchandise, group logos, flags, tattoos, uniforms, etc. Widespread use of symbols and quotes from American history, especially the Revolutionary War, exist within MVE networks. Historic and contemporary military themes are common for MVE symbols. The use or sharing of these symbols alone should not be independently evidence of MVE presence or affiliation, or serve as an indicator of illegal activities, as many individuals use these things for other nonviolent purposes. Isn't that nice? So they identify all of the terrorists and they say, but some of these people aren't terrorists. And so just because they have a symbol doesn't mean you should castigate them as such. And we've talked a lot about this here on the show. This is the government sort of covering their butts, right? They can't, like, for example, we talk about this in the context of DUIs all the time. If they make a basis for a traffic stop, like a DUI, for example, a one variable indicator, well, then everybody's going to fight that one variable, that one indicator, that one sort of bit of indicia. So when they spread it out over a bunch of different things, okay, what's going to draw your attention to somebody? Is it going to be their logo? Probably. And if you take a look at their logo because it's been identified for you from the FBI, then that's going to draw your attention to it, right? Then you're going to be sort of looking, it's confirmation bias at that point. Now, I can look at a 3%er or a Gadsden flag person, and we'll take a look and we'll say, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Now I can go find what I actually need, right? So here, there's more to this from Project Veritas, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. Go over to their website and follow along. But this is what is the basis of Ted Cruz's first line of questioning. So here he is. Senate Judiciary hearing today, and it's Ted Cruz versus Christopher Wray. Remember, Christopher Wray is the director of the FBI. We've talked a lot about him. And he received a letter from Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson and many other senators, and they've been very upset with the FBI for their handling of basically everything. And we're going to get into this a little bit more, but here is Ted Cruz. It's 4 minutes. We'll start and stop this and just sort of parse through it bit by bit.
Director Wray, I'm deeply concerned that the FBI and the Department of Justice have become thoroughly politicized.
Yeah.
I think this is a problem that began during the Obama administration. I think it metastasized with career officials during the Trump administration, and I think it continues and is even worse today under the Biden administration. I don't believe you personally reflect that politicization, but I think you've been unwilling to root it out and unwilling to hold people accountable for the politicization. I hear regularly from FBI agents and from professionals at the Department of Justice who are dismayed that our law enforcement has been weaponized and politicized rather than remaining apolitical as it has been for the history of our country. Yesterday, it was reported that Project Veritas had obtained a copy of an FBI training material.
There it is.
Which listed various symbols and themes which, in the FBI's estimation, were indicative of, quote, militia violent extremism. Now, these symbols weren't things like the Ku Klux Klan or the Nazi Party, which naturally would be symbols of that, but instead they included, rather astonishingly, patriotic symbols of our nation and our history. Included on this list is the Betsy Ross flag. Now, that's fairly remarkable that the Betsy Ross flag in the FBI's indication is indicative of militia violent extremism, because among other people who have been publicly alongside the Betsy Ross flag, we have President Barack Obama, who was sworn in directly underneath two Betsy Ross flags. But it's not just President Obama. We also have President Biden, who was sworn in under Betsy Ross flags.
Oh, interesting. Now, I got to say, Ted Cruz is very good at this, right? He's one of the better senators or better politicians really ever who does these types of performances. Now, this is 2 minutes into this, okay? He's got a limited amount of time, 2 minutes into it. There's not even a single question. Now, I'm not trying to, this is what politicians do. Ted Cruz is sort of, I think, a cut above the others. Nobody else really comes in with a lot of theatrics as much as Ted Cruz does, right? He brings in the podiums. He brings in the whiteboards and all of the printed poster boards and all of the graphics, and a lot of sort of stuff is involved in it. And you're going to see he's got another little shtick coming here in a minute, but still not really a question, right? He hasn't asked a question yet. And he hasn't even confirmed for us, to my knowledge, that this is an official FBI document at all, right? Or that this was something that Christopher Wray can even talk about. But he's sort of delivering this for Twitter. He's delivering this for YouTube because he knows people like me are going to say, oh, well done there, Ted. And that's exactly what he's doing. But we're not going to get much substantive out of this because it is Christopher Wray, of course.
It's not just the Betsy Ross flag. Also on this list is the Gadsden flag as a symbol of violent extremism. Now, The state of Virginia has a license plate for the
See?
Gadsden flag, as do many other states.
Props. He's got props.
I think people would be astonished to find that having that license plate, the FBI indicates that you're a violent extremist. Also included on this is a Texan I was particularly struck.
Now watch this.
Is the Gonzales battle flag.
Watch.
Come and take it. As indicative of being a violent extremist militia. Well, I will self-report right now.
Here it is.
That every day in the Senate I wear my boots that have the Gonzales battle flag on the back of them.
There it is.
Director Wray, what are y'all doing?
Perfect. It's perfect. Home
This
run.
makes no sense. Do you agree with this FBI guidance that the Betsy Ross flag and the Gadsden flag and the Gonzales battle flag are signs of militia violent extremism?
Here we go.
Well, Senator, I'm not familiar with the particular document you have behind you.
No idea.
And I'm not in the practice of trying to comment on documents that I haven't recognized. But
Never
I
seen
will
it.
tell you that when we put out intelligence products, including ones that reference...
Never seen the document, okay? Doesn't even know what the heck he's talking about. But meanwhile, we can see that basically he came with, I think, 6 props. I mean, we have what was this? Let's see. We got 3 poster boards right there. 3 poster boards, 2 easels, and we have a boot, and we've got the Virginia flag, the Gadsden flag. So Ted Cruz comes prepared. And Christopher Wray, unfortunately, this would have been really, really useful if Christopher Wray had seen the document or was honest about this. But he goes, nope, no idea what you're even talking about. Very strange, and I can't comment on it.
recognized, but I will tell you that when we put out intelligence products, including ones that reference symbols, which we do across a wide variety of contexts, we usually take great pains to put caveats and warnings in the document that make clear that a symbol alone is not considered evidence of violent extremism, and it's...
Well, but Director Wray, you don't
Go on.
include things like Antifa, you don't include
Yeah.
things like Black Lives Matter. Instead, you identify patriotic Americans as suspects. And I would note there's a pattern of this.
He's exactly right. So Ted Cruz goes off and he details exactly what we've been covering here, right? All of the different letters that we started this segment with, the DVEs, the HGVEs, the RMVEs, now the MVEs. Is like, good Lord, man. And every time you turn around, there's a new contingent of Americans that is the enemy, right? That are the enemy. And something very interesting, right, that we've covered here was the Whitmer kidnapping plot. Okay, something the FBI was supposedly investigating. They had a bunch of individuals who were protecting Governor Whitmer, and they got this, the FBI agents uncovered this plot to kidnap her right in the months leading up to an election out there in Michigan. And we covered this. All the FBI agents were a bunch of just total garbage losers. Some of them were charged with domestic violence after, wild parties, where they were engaged. This is a family show, but they were engaging in swinger parties all over the place. And, oh, hey, shout out. It's Marvin. Marvin's in the house. Look at Marvin. He's right there. So all of these people are sort of, engaged in nefariousness, and they are walking around like they are America's saviors. They're people who are protecting all of us. And during that Whitmer plot, right, actually that went to trial and several people were totally acquitted because many of the FBI agents were as bad as I just sort of described, and some even worse. And you start looking at this thing, and most of the people in the plot seem to be like they were undercover informants or actual FBI agents who were sort of creating an entire fake narrative in order to indict some people to pad their numbers so that they could report back to guys like Christopher Wray. Oh, we've got some new MVEs that we rounded up. We've got some new HGVEs. Sounds like a cable channel. And this guy, right, is now going to say that he promoted the person who was responsible for that giant catastrophe. And I know many of you spent some time with us covering it. Here's Ted Cruz asking him, hey, what happened to the person over at the Chicago field office who was responsible for that, or wherever the field office was?
Recently, there was the case against individuals charged with kidnapping and murdering Governor Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. That case ended up an absolute debacle where the 4 people who went to trial, 2 of them were acquitted, 2 received mistrials. None of them were convicted on even a single charge, and the basis of the defense was entrapment.
Yeah.
That the FBI, that paid enforcements for the FBI, had suggested and had incited the conduct. Let me ask you, how many FBI agents were disciplined or reprimanded after that disastrous case and the misconduct that led to every defendant being acquitted or having a mistrial on every charge?
That your law enforcement agents lied.
Senator, I can't comment on a personnel matter. I can tell you that that case, as I understand it, is now pending a retrial, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Well, the special agent in charge of that case has now been sent.
It is pending a retrial, and I added that to my docket list, and it is very likely going to, go forward. But what Ted Cruz says was accurate, right? There were many acquittals and many hung verdicts that came out of this thing, and he's not going to comment on personnel issues. So remember why these people come in front of Congress. Congress is the body that governs the finances of the federal government. And so they've got sort of a responsibility to make sure that the money is being appropriated appropriately, so that it's not going down the toilet, so that we don't have political institutions that bubble up and then start to undermine American values and law enforcement efforts across the board. Ted Cruz is asking him about this. Your agents, whom we know were engaged in serious wrongdoing, have they been disciplined? Can't answer that. Okay. And so now it continues
to D.C., to the Washington, D.C. office, and now leads the investigation regarding January 6th. Is that correct?
Let me back that up.
Charge of that case.
The person in charge of the Whitmer plot, what happened to him?
Senator, I can't comment on a personnel matter. I can tell you that that case, as I understand it, is now pending a retrial, as I understand it.
Well, the special agent in charge of that case has now been sent to D.C., to the Washington, D.C. office, and now leads the investigation regarding January 6th. Is that correct?
That doesn't sound right to me.
That does not sound right. The name of the individual is Stephen D'Antuono. It was run out of the FBI Detroit field office. And by the way, I will point out that the lead investigator, Special Agent Track, are you aware that he was apparently fired for allegedly beating his wife after coming home from a swingers party?
Yeah.
And he's made multiple derogatory political posts about President Trump showing
that guy. I didn't know Ted Cruz was going to get into him, but yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
Political bias. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of, I think, the incident you're describing and action that was taken about it. To clarify on the first part of your question, Mr. D'Antuono was the special agent in charge of the office, the Detroit field office, and is now the assistant director in charge of the Washington field office. I thought you were asking about the agent who was responsible for the
So the guy in charge got promoted and is now in charge of the January 6th investigation.
The guy in charge of the whole Detroit field office is now in charge of the whole Washington field office.
That is astonishing.
It is astonishing, Ted. It is astonishing, isn't it? And so you can see what happens, right? Hey, why don't you go over here and just run an office that's responsible for concocting a fake hoax that led to the Whitmer plot prosecution with a bunch of innocent people who were, sort of hanging around talking with undercover agents who got entrapped into being a part of this plot, all acquitted or mistrialed, and now they're going to try it again because because the government keeps going, right? They have the ability to do that. But Ted Cruz is saying, you are unbelievable for promoting that guy, right? He was somebody who botched that whole story, created a narrative for you. Why don't you send him over to DC? He'll do the whole thing again. One narrative in Michigan, another one in DC. Not a big surprise. So that is Christopher Wray. Now, of course, there are other topics, and it's not only a Ted Cruz segment today. We've got one clip from Marsha Blackburn, and because it's this clip that really summarizes the rest of the hearing. We've got a lot of questions for Christopher Wray. I have bullet points in our J6 mind map at j6mindmap.com, where we want serious answers for all the little minutia that has popped up throughout our coverage of the January 6th saga. But we don't get any answers from him. Why? Because this is how he responds when he gets substantive questions. Here's Senator Blackburn, who is asking him two questions, one about Russian disinformation, the other about Hunter Biden. That's right.
They're trying to do. Americans looked at what they perceived to be, and I think rightly so, a ton of money that was wasted on the Russia collusion investigation. So do you agree that the allegation of secret collusion between President Trump and Russia was a hoax? Yes or no?
I don't think that's the terminology I would use, but I think there's been a lot written on this subject, and both in the special counsel's report, the inspector general's
Just
report.
yes or no is fine.
So that's not a term I would use.
So no.
Okay.
Okay.
Do
So
you
not-
agree that the Hunter Biden laptop was not Russia disinformation?
Now you're asking about an ongoing investigation that I expect our folks to pursue aggressively, and I can't comment on that.
Okay,
Can't
and you possess
comment.
the laptop, right?
Again, I can't discuss that in
Can't.
an ongoing
Okay.
investigation.
Don't you just love it? No, we can't comment about any of this stuff. Ongoing investigation, and we don't want to jeopardize anything. So it's very, very interesting. You know, if you don't open an investigation, then you say you're getting special privilege. If you do open an investigation, or you say there's nothing there, and that person is getting special privilege. But if you open the investigation, then that person is, you know, sort of under investigation, but you can't actually talk about that investigation. And so it's very conflicty of interesty, isn't it? If the president, who runs the executive branch, who runs the FBI is investigating the president's son, you see how that little chain might be problematic, how it all sort of, you know, spirals back up there, might be a conflict of interest. In fact, a big one. So now, of course, things get a little bit uncomfortable. And after these questions, it's about, it's 4 hours. Christopher Wray's like, gosh, you know, I'm over this. You guys are such losers. Do you know who I am? I'm the director of the FBI. I run things around here. And so he tells them, and Columbia Bugle caught this one, a good follow over on Twitter, Columbia Bugle says, at Columbia Bugle, you have got to be kidding me. What is more important than answering questions about the FBI's actions under oath from senators elected by the American people, Wray? And this is what happens. Christopher Wray has to just skedoodle on out of there. Here he is.
Senator, I had a flight that I'm supposed to be hightailing it to out of here.
Hightailing.
And I had understood that we were going to be done at 1:30, so that's how we ended up where we are.
If it's your business trip, you got your own plane. Can it wait a while?
Sorry, to be honest. I've tried to make my break as fast as I could to get right back out of here. So we could
You took
resume.
more than 5 minutes.
You took more than 5 minutes,
This
says
is a
Grassley.
tight ship, Mr. Director. Listen, I don't recall mentioning in a second round. I want to accommodate as many as I can and still be respectful of the fact that this is your third appearance in 2 years before this committee, and I appreciate that very much.
Third appearance in front of the committee to again deliver no answers. So that's Christopher Wray. You see, after just a short couple hours this morning in front of really kind of a limited set of questions. You got Ted Cruz, you've got Marsha Blackburn asking good questions, but not getting any answers because Christopher Wray, first of all, well, he's the FBI. He runs things around there, and it's time for him to go. He decided, had enough of this. I'm out of here. And everybody's just like, okay, I guess, see ya. So there you go, my friends. That is Ted Cruz and the Judiciary Committee versus Christopher Wray. We'll see if there's any other substantive information that comes out of it. I wouldn't hold your breath.